reason why is when I think about the Mount Rushmore of Cubs, I think about it in several different categories. I think about obviously their statistics, but I also think about what did they mean to the ball club, the organization, the city, and the fans. Those four things. And I think you can give him an A to an A plus on all four of those categories. So that's why I would definitely put him in that Mount Rushmore.
There's a drive way back. It might be. It could be. It is. Holy cow. Welcome to another broadcast of Bricks Behind the Ivy. Holy cow.
Hey, Cub fans, welcome back to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. I am your hostess, the mostest, Jeff Candid Cubs Rogowskis, and joining me again is our co-host extraordinaire, Mr. Pat Erickson. Pat, how are you doing?
What's going on, everybody? I know I'm on life support right now, running out of fingernails, and oh boy, heart palpitations, but there still is hope.
Yeah, just like Porter Hodge, apparently, whose heart starts to race when he gets out there, which, jokes aside, hopefully that's not anything serious. But, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's just a little bit of the anxiety and adrenaline pumping and, getting the ball in the most critical moments of Cub games. But, yeah, the sky isn't necessarily falling unless you're at the BBTI cave in house where people are falling through my roof. If you didn't see the post last week, we did not have an episode last week because just a comedy of issues as the magnifying glass from the universe focused on me for a little bit. Felt really special, and yeah, it had the roof getting replaced just because of hailstorms and stuff. And yeah, the roofer fell through one of the rotted pieces of wood and through the drywall in my kitchen, and everyone's okay. That's good news, and all the damage is covered. So no additional funds out of the Candid Cub pocket, but which leaves more funds for spending at our lovely sponsor, Wrigleyville Sports. Yes, that is the best transition.
Bingo!
If you have been listening for a while, you know that Wrigleyville Sports has been sponsoring us, and they are the best Cubs merchandise store in Wrigleyville. Adjacent to Wrigley Field, they have been around since 1990. Family owned, really good at custom jerseys and getting you custom jerseys fast. And we have a coupon code. If you use the code IV10, yes, IV10 at checkout, online, you'll get 10% off your order. Once again, that is IV10 for 10% off. And thank you so much, Wrigleyville Sports, for continuing to be our sponsor.
Thank you. Tip of the cap to you.
Absolutely.
And sorry, Irish Nation, but I had to wear this today.
Yeah, represents.
Roll skis. There you go.
If you're a Notre Dame fan, you're not going to find any pity here.
Nope.
Northern Illinois has one of the biggest wins in their program's history, and coming from a mid-major school myself, go Valpo, go Beacons. The little guy being the big guy is one of my favorite things about college sports. And with the way that things are scheduled and the way things are organized in college sports anymore, it seems like there's seldom opportunities for things to happen. So when they do happen, it brings me so much joy. Sorry, Notre Dame fans. But
it's all right.
We start every episode with the Box Score Blitz, which has a new sponsor. As we have a new sponsor, we announced on Twitter and Instagram last week, Yagi Road Roasting. Yagi Road Roasting is a premium coffee company roaster based out of Valparaiso, Indiana. They know that you have coffee with the simple and best moments of your life, so why not make their coffee the best part of your day? I got to visit the retail store they have inside of a bookshop inside of Valparaiso, Indiana, which is obviously home to Valparaiso University, the greatest university on the planet, and they are run by a few Valpo grads, and their coffee truly is incredible. Tastes so good. Really the difference in how they put the beans together. I've been ruined for other coffee for the rest of my life. My wife had to immediately order the beans. Like it just tastes so good. So thanks to all the folks over there for being a new sponsor. We have a link in the description of this podcast for you to order Yagi Road Roasting Coffee. If you are in the Chicago area, they do sell at locations in Bucktown, which you can find on their website. So Yagi Road Roasting Company, thank you so much for being a brand new sponsor. But this is going to be a very special Box Score Blitz. Instead of 60 seconds, we're going to try to do 90 seconds and do the last 2 weeks so that we can cover what we missed last week when someone fell through my roof and when someone didn't fall through my roof this week as we look at all things Cub baseball. So let's put some time on the clock. A 3. A 2. A 1. Play ball. Previously on the Box Score Blitz, before people fell through my ceiling, the Cubs had just completed a 14-10 comeback and a really nice sweep of the Pittsburgh Pirates as hope remained for the playoffs. The Cubs had 3 more on the road with the Nationals and brought the Brooms yet again, extending their win streak to 6 games. The offense stayed super hot, scoring 26 runs in 3 games in D.C. Cubs returned home to the friendly confines and did not see the same luck. They blew the first game on Monday with Jorge Lopez having a rare bad outing and ended up losing 2-3 to start the homestand. Then a very emotional weekend as Anthony Rizzo returned, walk-up music and all. Now all the 2016 members of the Cubs that have been traded or moved on have had their curtain call return. Cubs struggled to score in this series, losing 2-3. The road did not get easier as they headed west to face the NL West leading Dodgers, who have won the NL West 11 in the last 12 years. Isn't that nuts? But road magic. Cubs take 2 of 3 in this series, nearly pulling off the sweep, much to the chagrin of the MLB Twitter account last night as they had assumed the Cubs got swept, which was not what has happened, and nobody has swept the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium this year. Very interesting. All in all, 7-5 stretch. So who's the player of the weeks? Cody Bellinger, he finally found a stroke. 365 on base percentage, 545 slugging, 4 home runs, 10 runs, and 11 RBIs. And pitcher of the week, Shota Imanaga, with 20 innings pitched, 3 games started, 3 quality starts, 3 wins, 19 Ks, 3 walks, and only 6 earned runs. And that is the Box Score Blitz. Just a lot going on in Cubdom. The Cubs came home and got to play the Yankees, and it is the return of Anthony Rizzo to
Captain, my captain.
Yeah, exactly. Probably the true captain of the last real good run of Cubs wins and playoff appearances. It was good to see Rizzo back. They did a lot of cool stuff, like play his walk-up song for his first at-bat, and he talked about how emotional of a trip it was for him as well, and he got lots of standing ovations. And nice to see him healthy, too, because I know he's missed a good chunk of this year with some nagging injuries, and he had that weird concussion thing last year that just took away a lot of his season. But, yeah, pal, what was it like seeing Tony back at Wrigley Field for you?
You know, it brought back a rush of emotion. First of all, it was very gratifying to see him actually come back because he's such a nice guy that, you know, him being out with all these injuries and stuff, just for the fact of him coming back and starting to play again, that was awesome to see. But it brought back just a rush of memories of everything that he did for the ball club, not just in 2016. Granted, yes, 2016, the World Series, everything that he did, the final out, all those great things. But you even got to look beyond all that. And you also have to look at beyond, and you look at social media, even this past weekend when he came into town, the first thing he did is he beelined it right over to Lurie's Hospital, Children's Hospital,
Yes.
and he was seeing all the sick kids. And it's like he never forgets. He never forgets his home. He said time and time again that he loves Chicago, that Chicago's his home. Now, I know all the meatballs are out there and the articles are out there that, oh, Rizzo might come back home. Who knows? I mean, that's so far-fetched. But we will always have those memories. I mean, the one memory that I will never forget, and I was actually at the game, is when he caught that foul ball dancing on the tarp roll along the first baseline. That was just the kind of guy he was. He always played with a smile on his face. He always played at 110%. He always gave it his all, and he was always the quintessential captain. I mean, when I think it was the Cincinnati Reds when they were mouthing off to him, and he basically went after the entire dugout solo. I mean, granted, he had backup later.
Aroldis Chapman, future Cub and World Series champion.
And now look what happened. It came full circle. But that just showed you the kind of guy that he is. And it was great to see him come back. And it was great to see that the fans gave him the respect that he deserved, hearing the walk-up song every time. And, I mean, I think he got a standing ovation. It seemed like every single at-bat for all 3 games. So that was great to see. What about you? What did you feel seeing him come back to Chicago?
Yeah, I had a lot of just mixed feelings. I definitely have struggled to process the 2016 team, as, a lot of these guys obviously have left the team it feels almost pretty quickly after that run. And, it was like tearing off a Band-Aid back when it happened. So like in 2021, I felt a lot of like that, sadness. It was over. And I'm trying to shift towards the happy because it happened. There's a lot of like just noise and commentary and stuff that came with the pandemic. And unfortunately, I got roasted on Twitter for this. Rizzo was part of that. Has made me, feel a little icky about his legacy, especially with like how dialed in he is to like with him recovering from cancer and all the stuff he does with blurry children. But my son's middle name is Anthony, and it's because of Anthony Rizzo, and it's because of I wanted him to look up to Anthony Rizzo's charity work. And I can share the article or the letter I wrote my son the night the Cubs won the World Series that explained to him why he's named what he is, and have a section in there about why he's Anthony. And so Rizzo's always going to mean something a lot to me, as just because of the connection to my son. And
that's awesome.
A future inductee to the Candid Cubs Hall of Fame, which is almost as big as the actual Hall of Fame and not quite as big as the Cubs Hall of Fame. Congratulations around Ramirez and Kerry Wood. Kerry Wood is a Candid Cubs Hall of Fame member, and I'll have to let him know. Maybe we can get him down here for a ceremony, just like they got him for Wrigley.
Let me call him.
Yeah, let's call Kerry. As you can see, the Kerry Wood 20 strikeout framed autograph flag in my valley. Kerry Wood is one of my all-time favorite Cubs. But yeah, it was weird seeing him in another uniform. It was, but like it's also like finally the closing of a chapter. The last 2016 member that got traded away to come back to Wrigley, fitting that it was Rizzo, and yeah, it's just weird to think about how far we are from 2016. Like we're closer to the 10th anniversary of that team.
That's unbelievable.
In 2015, making fun of my Sox friends for having 10 years since their last World Series, and like it really just highlights how special these moments are. And
yeah,
I do.
Now let me ask you this question: do you think that after Rizzo's all said and done, do you think he would come back to the Cubs in a capacity as such as maybe Kerry Wood's going to be, or as Sandberg is now, such as like a Cubs ambassador type role? What do you think?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think he's definitely going to be welcome back to do something like that. It'll be interesting to see if he's interested in that. He's lucky in his career, just like where he was drafted by the Red Sox, short stint with the Padres, bulk of his career, 10 years of his career here in Chicago, and then, the last few years in the Yankees. Like he's been able to tie himself to, some pretty awesome historic franchises, and hopefully the Cubs one is the one that means the most to him. So I could see him coming back in capacity. I think of the 2016 group, I think the ones that I look at as like really wanting them to come back in some capacity is, as we figure out what's going on, what the next stage of Kyle Hendricks' career is, like him being in the front office just seems to make a lot of sense. A very like Craig Breslow type, just a very successful cerebral pitcher, and then kind of applying what he does to the game and maybe being part of game planning and such. And Yeah, but Rizzo, yeah, I think he'll be like Sandberg and them, where like his presence is just going to elevate like memories and lift up
Oh yeah.
fans, and being around the team is like going to be important for Cub fans, and him coming back to Cub convention and doing the seventh inning stretch and those types of things is going to be something I
Yeah.
feel like is regularly going to happen. Which actually pivots to the question I was going to ask you, and I saw it circulating on Twitter this weekend. Anthony Rizzo, is he on the Mount Rushmore of Cub players? And given that Mount Rushmore already has four heads and we have four statues at Wrigley already, is he?
Hey,
Would he
Isn't
be?
it another one?
Is he in the conversation of being one of the great Cubs? And is he deserving of a statue?
Honestly, I think so. And here's my reasoning behind that. If you look at first of all, let's look at our statues that we have right now. The statues that we have right now is, for the most part, you've got certain eras. Okay. You've got the Ernie Banks, and then kind of came a little bit later was the Billy Williams, then the Ron Santos, and then the Fergie Jenkins. So it's almost like a little timeline there. But that was kind of that era. Then now you've got the Ryan Sandberg kind of exemplifying what the 80s meant. Now, here, the 2016 Cubs are basically, for lack of a better term, the best way to compare it to it is going to be like the 85 Bears. Everybody's going to be talking about that team. Everybody's going to be, doing different events with that team, all different kinds of things. Okay, so you got to think about it this way. Something has to be immortalized from that 2016 team. And now from that team, you've got a lot of different characters. You had your Bryants, your Baez's, your Addison Russells, your Ben Zobrist, and a lot of different guys had a lot of different pieces that added to why there was a success. That all being said, and I know I'm kind of going about the long way with this. That all being said, Rizzo was the glue that held all of that together. Rizzo was the one that was the catalyst that drove all of these pieces to give them their 110%. And because of all of that, yeah, first of all, I would be very surprised if he does not get a statue. I mean, let's face it, the neighborhood's big. Okay, he might not be able to squeeze one in Gallagher Way. Maybe I don't know, by the Toyota car by Clark and Addison. Or something. I don't know, but I do think. Yeah, he's on a tarp. Yeah, hey, like one of these. But I think he is going to get a statue. And then, as far as your Mount Rushmore of Cubs, if you could chisel him in there, I would definitely put him up there. And the reason why is, when I think about the Mount Rushmore of Cubs, I think about it in several different categories. I think about, obviously, their statistics, but I also think about what did they mean to the ball club, the organization, the city, and the fans. Those four things. And I think you can give him an A to an A plus on all four of those categories. So that's why I would definitely put him in that Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I think it's a tough conversation, and really, if you're looking at the players that have statues, like, with the thing they have in common currently is they're Hall of Famers, and looking at Rizzo's numbers for his career at this point, not necessarily like Hall of Fame trajectory, very solid player. He gives me a little bit of like Mark Grace vibes, and what I mean by that is but more important than Mark Grace. Mark Grace had the most hits in baseball in the 90s. Like, just a very steady Eddie, really good player. We can discuss at a different time, like the off the field antics, and maybe he wouldn't have survived as long as he did if Twitter and the internet existed when he was.
Oh gosh, no.
But yeah, like, he gives that Mark Grace vibes of like kind of like the heart and soul everybody loves of the squad. But yeah, I think the statue debate is tough. I'd like to see something from the 2016 team potentially become a statue. I don't know if it's necessary, but like maybe like a final out statue that has like, Rizzo like having his arms extended, like at the cover of Sports Illustrated. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll kind of drop that. It's one of my favorite pictures from the World Series. And like
Right back there.
yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know if you can see it, but it's
Over
right there. Yep, there you
Actually,
go.
if I move my head, it's that one.
Yep, there it is.
So like,
Either that or you
yeah,
can do the one where he's like putting his hands on his head like this, screaming it's
yeah,
magic. I don't know.
it's tough. Like, I think there's arguments for like a few folks from that 2016 group to like represent, and I feel like
Ooh.
just because of how monumental that moment was for the franchise, like it needs to be embossed a little bit differently. But who and whom represents that visual is really challenging. Like, is it Theo Epstein, like that, like for being the executive that turned it around? But then like you have to go at the back end, like when he emptied the farm and he left a year early on his contract, like not to like drag him through the mud. Is it Joe Madden, like in his shtick and like what he brought to that team? Like how do you embody that moment? But like Anthony Rizzo is probably towards the
Hard.
top of that list of being the one to represent that, and puts him in like potentially the statue worthy status. But yeah, I mean he had a 10-year career with the Cubs, 861 OPS in that time frame, which was good for about 130 weighted runs created plus, so about 30% better than the average player in that time period. His numbers aren't as good since he left. So 734 OPS with New York, but a lot of injury-prone seasons. The back, the concussion thing. It just has been different for him since he's been a Yankee. And I do want to just kind of touch base too of, I wanted to write an article last week before someone fell through my roof about the litany of first base and the vacuum that like was left, this black hole left when Anthony Rizzo left first base. Like he was platinum.
There's been some characters.
Yeah,
Yikes.
platinum glove winner. He was, like he left in the middle of the year in 2021. He would go like steady Eddie, great defender. Like you knew what he was bringing to the table. Pretty solid, high on base percentage and slug energy. Just like all about like what you want at first base. And the Cubs have really struggled until potentially Michael Busch now to like replace that production. Do you know how many guys the Cubs have had at first base since 2021, since Rizzo left? Do you want to take a guess?
Let me say 4.
It's 9.
9 times.
9 times.
And
You got to be kidding me.
yeah, and that's not
I knew it was
including.
up there. I didn't realize it was that bad.
I'm not even including Cody Bellinger.
I want to hear this
attempt.
stellar list.
Yeah, so here we go. And if you can name all these at home, the best of that group was the 131 game sample size we got from Frank the Tank Schwindel, who is now just overseas. Yeah, exactly. He was at 118 weighted runs created plus, and just like was solid, and then just fell off. Like just fell off real hard. It was a fun summer when he like Frank the Tank was rolling, but yeah, it just didn't really hold up. Cubs traded
the summer of Schwisdom.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, like back when we had nothing to watch.
Nope, that was it.
You had Yeimer Candelario, who played some first base after the Cubs traded for him, so not many games there, and he struggled mightily after a really hot like start when he got traded. Only a 107 weighted runs created plus, only 41 games over there. Jared Young, he took some.
Wow.
The on base machine, or at least we were sold as an on base machine, Alfonso Rivas. He took a ton of reps at first base. The Cubs give some run to PJ Higgins over there, who's
Oh,
been
wow.
in and out of the organization. The amazingly productive tandem of Trey Mancini and Eric Hosmer, which one of those guys we're still paying, but isn't here. I'll give you a hint. His family owns a pepper farm, as MLB The Show has told me. Trey Mancini peppers, and both those guys 75 and 68 weighted runs created plus. Matt Mervis, only 27 games, but
Oh, yeah.
48 weighted runs created plus. Guy hasn't really gotten a really good shot. I'm not saying
No, hasn't
he's a
panned out the way we thought, but
exactly. And then Taylor Gushu played 2 games for the Cubs at first base. No idea.
oh my gosh, I forgot about him.
Yeah. So just the Cubs have really struggled to fill that void since he left, and I think there was part of us that thought, as PCA developed, that Cody Bellinger would take over there, but now with the emergence of Michael Busch, the Cubs definitely have some decisions to make this offseason. Like, do you slot Michael Busch back into second base, and move Horner? Do you slot Isaac Paredes into second base and move Horner, and then try to get a third baseman? Whereas Bellinger plays, is he going to be the everyday right fielder, and you're just making the assumption that Seiya Suzuki is going to be your everyday DH? Just a lot of questions there. But yeah, first base since Rizzo left, not a fun
Wow, that is an ugly list. I
Yes.
could have probably out of that list maybe told you 4,
Yeah,
and
same.
that might have been it. But wow, and I mean a lot of this could also change too because you're going into the off season and you hear all these kind of grumbles. You've been hearing about how Suzuki, he might be out of town. You never know about that. You don't know if this Paredes thing, if he's going to be staying here or if this is just going to be, a rental type situation and he's going to be getting out of town. Nobody seems to know what's going on. So that could alter the look of not only the ball club, but who's going to be in the infield to parlay into who's going to be in first base. So yeah, who knows?
Yeah, definitely it's going to be an off season to discuss, which
Right.
is a perfect transition to, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. And if you are listening on a podcast, make sure that you are subscribing there and reviewing, especially on Apple Podcasts, to help us extend reach. And for this week, if you are watching on YouTube, leave some thoughts in the comments. What do you think your favorite Anthony Rizzo moment was when he was a Cub? Put them down there. We'll share on Twitter some of the best we see, and the best one, the most likes on the YouTube contest or comments, we will send you a Bricks Behind the Ivy trucker hat. So make a comment on your favorite Rizzo thing, win this awesome hat. So that's a good. That bell means it's time to change subjects, and we're going to talk about. Originally, I wanted to have this episode be a Cubs eulogy because I was pretty down after the Yankee series and them going into LA, but they took 2 of 3 in LA. 3 of 3 in the tough stretch after their real hot stretch. Versus Pittsburgh, and on the road they had lost their winning streak of 8 in a row on the road last evening, and at the end of the day they have stayed alive. We're at a 2% chance. Gonna use so you're telling me there's a chance, Lloyd Christmas line. And they have a stretch coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They've got the Rockies, the A's, and the Nationals, and the A's and the Nationals at home. So an opportunity to really put some wins together. And the Braves and the Brewers and the Pirates all have, they have different opponents. Some of them more challenging than others. So there's still an opportunity here, and they're at 70 losses at the moment, or let's see, standings. There are 71 losses, and for them to get to 90 wins, I feel like they need to get to 88 wins to really have a real shot at really making the playoffs. So they really can only lose 3 more games the rest of the season, which is a tall task.
Buckle up, Cub fans.
Unless, there's a collapse in the team's order. Because if you're looking at the Mets, they already have 80 wins. So you wouldn't really, for the Cubs to be, to eclipse them, they're going to have to probably win 88 games, which is what we had said a few weeks ago, which is what, Lance Brzezowski had said in their final 40. They needed to win 66% of their games. So they really need to go like on a heater in the stretch where they're playing crummier opponents and take advantage if they really want to keep this thing alive, and hope that the baseball gods allow the ball to bounce their way, and see if they can sneak into the tournament. But instead of a eulogy, as we hold on to just the glimmest, the slightest light of hope, which is all Cub fans had for a long time. So this is not old. This is an old hat we're putting back on. The delusional hope hat, which happens to be a Bricks Behind the Ivy hat ordered today. But as we approach the end of the season, we've had a lot of great moments, great players, and I wanted to take a time to talk about our favorite Cub moments from 2024 thus far. And we're both going to just talk about one that really sticks out. And Pat, why don't you go ahead? What has been the best moment or thing about the 2024 Cubs season?
Well, honestly, I sat here and I was thinking about a specific moment, a specific game time when, the team might have turned it around. And unfortunately, this season's been so much of a roller coaster. I feel like I've been watching games at Great America on the old American Eagle, but riding the roller coaster. But the one constant, so I don't really have a specific event, but the one constant that I have loved this entire season is the constant of Shota Imanaga. First of all, we got him. If you compare him to the Yamamoto signing, it's a steal as far as contracts are concerned. Okay. But more importantly, and we were talking about this earlier, that is the quietest 13-3 I have ever seen. And yes, besides an outing against the Mets, and I think maybe an outing against Pittsburgh, he has been the constant this entire year. It's almost like if the Cubs have been struggling, or they're struggling to find hits, or they're struggling to, the defense, or whatever the case might be, every single time he takes the bump, you can truly say that he's giving you a chance to win. And it's shown time and time and time again. I mean, and that just showed again the other night when he pitched. So I think, tip of the cap to Shota. And that's why he was the all-star rep this year for the Cubs. But I think just to have that constant has been key.
Yeah, Shota Imanaga has been better than advertised. And that feels almost insulting. If you look at the scouting reports and how they projected this guy coming to the major leagues, they said that he was back end starter at best, might have to shift to the bullpen. And the Cubs got a really nice deal for him because it felt like everybody, believed that scouting report. But, he had some trouble with the home run ball when he was overseas, but it had a lot to do with the guy just pounds the zone, throws pitches in the zone a lot. And if you refuse to walk guys and you have to throw a pitch in the zone, then, you take the chance of being hit. But even with the home runs he still had really solid numbers. I apologize to everyone who's hearing my dog. She really wants to go meet the contractor upstairs.
That's the official mascot of your Bricks Behind the Ivy.
Exactly. I've got two of them, Mackenzie and and Chili. I have two miniature golden doodles. But anywho, yeah, he's been so good this year. He's been just so consistent, and like you
lights
said,
out.
there's just been very few instances in which he's stuttered. He's just been such a force. He had a 3-inning pitch at that Mets game, which is on June 21st, where he gave up 10 earned runs, which just throw it out, just not a big deal. He had a tough one at Milwaukee where he ended up with 7 earned runs. Just not another one, just throw it out. But, besides that, every one of his starts have been 3 earned runs or less, except for one.
Quality starts. Yep.
Yeah, just a quality start machine. And, yeah, just the quietest 13-3, that you've seen. The Cubs in games he's pitched this year are 21-6. So like Shota Imanaga really turned into kind of win day. It's just like every time the guy takes the ball, and like he's been like the slump stopper. He's been the guy that you've been able to depend on to really put out a quality start. He's been able to adjust, to the type of hitters and stuff here, and has really established, a good north-south approach with his split, and his fastball, and yeah, just such a good story. You hope that like he finds, just another gear next year and becomes like just as big of a part of this rotation. If you just in comparison, some tough luck in there, some quality starts, but not necessarily getting run support, and then some injuries also kind of limiting opportunities for Justin Steele. But Cubs are 10-12 in Justin Steele starts this year, which would surprise me because I would have him be the guy that I'd write down as automatic win day.
You would think that would be a lot better than that. I mean, there's so many stats this year that just blows my mind. That one, how we have a 1-run better differential on the road versus home games, it blows my mind. But the other thing that I always love too about Shota this year is the fact of, and you just touched on it, how we've had problems with injuries with Steele. We've had problems with injuries and whatever else is going on with Kyle Hendricks. We've had issues going on with Tyon when he was hurt. And yet we always had that anchor, that quiet anchor, but we've always had the anchor of Imanaga that we always can guarantee and rely upon to go out there year after year, outing after outing after outing. So tip of the cap to you.
As much as, we sit here too and talk about like the frustrations of like in that moment, just talking about frustrations of the season, like you have to give credit to Craig Counsell and this group to like even be above 500 with some of the injuries that they've been dealt, like how they've put together a rotation at times. And like you could argue it's a failure of like adding the correct players to the team, but we're talking about potentially being a playoff spot, even at like Brown is not pitching again this year, and he was such a big part early in the year. Justin Steele missed a humongous amount of time. Like Javier Assad has been such a mixed bag, either really, really good or really, really tough and walking a ton of guys. Kyle Hendricks was unusable for 2 months. Like it just, and here we are, 5 games above 500 with, a glimmer of a shot. Like that's amazing. Like a team, you look in the South Side and, obviously, I'm not trying to kick them all there down, but, that's a team that looks like that's given up. And obviously, like, it's hard to, like, kind of wake up looking at that record and play for anything. But, like, they gave up months ago. And there's just a culture issue. This team at certain points of the season were, like, just a bushel of games under 500. And they've battled themselves back into a spot. And yeah, maybe they can address some roster issues so like they don't dig the hole again next year. And
they will.
Really, really looking at a stretch from the middle of May till June in which they were like 12 games or 500. That defined the season. That's the whole. But like Bellinger was missing. This entire lineup was based on Ian Happ having to be a monster in the 3-hole, and it's just not the type of player he is. And Dansby finding it the second gear in the second half this year, and like really just the continued accentuation of there's no star in this lineup to rise the tide of this group. So, but not that's for more off-season content. My favorite moment this year so far, and it's a little recency bias is at play, but that comeback win when they were down 10-3 in the 7th, and in the 10 in Pittsburgh,
that was huge.
Complete the sweep and continue on, their real hot stretch there to really put them in a position to be above 500, to change the narrative of the last month of the season to being from, oh God, like, what are we going to talk about on BBTI to, hey, like, there's a shot. Like, there's a shot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying they're a perfect team. I'm not saying that they do it or will do it. But, like, the fact that, like, there's a shot is better than nothing. Like, so, like, that moment, that win, like, it, really just, like, reignited the flame of, like, I do like a lot about this group. And when they play well, like, they're a fun team to watch. And, it would be hard not to mention, when you're saying fun, PCA. It's just been so great. We all knew the glove was going to make his value as a center fielder for this team.
Yeah.
Like,
big time.
The floor was going to be very high because of the glove. And if the bat ever produced, then we're having a different discussion. And now we're having a different discussion. The bat is turned around since mid-July. He's really cut down on strikeouts. The slug is there. Still aggressive at the plate. Yeah, a little of an oopsie. Trying to assuming that the wild, wacky, inflatable tube man Willie Harris was going to send a runner last night went to second.
Yeah, Willie had a rough night last night. I don't know what was going on last night, but
yeah, I don't want to.
In third base too. That also kind of perplexes me, but
yeah. We had the live stream last night watching the game, and yeah, there's two things that bother me about that. Not to get on too far of a tangent, but I'm stealing third potentially if there's only a right-handed batter that can block the view and make the throw more challenging for Will Smith, who has a really good throwing arm, and two, Michael Kopech was not throwing strikes.
Nope.
Like, what? Like, I didn't see the dire need in that moment, in that count. I don't know if it was a player decided move or if it was called. Very, very interesting decision. Not super thrilled about it. That's pretty much as negative as I'll get about Cub stuff. Like, I just feel like there was a real opportunity there, and yeah, just ex-Cardinal Tommy Edman just like giving it to us for 2 nights. Also, he has 4 home runs on the season, and they all happened last 48 hours. Just like, what? The guy weighs like 90 pounds. Like, it'd be like watching me hit a home run. Like, he'd be so surprised to see it. It's like
oh yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it as we head into just another stretch of really important games and some home games, some of the final home games at Wrigley, with the Oakland A's coming to town, who are, they're pesky. If you get behind in that game late, good luck. You got to face Mason Miller. So scoring early on that team is going to be really important in that series. And then you got the Nationals who, the Cubs took care of business in D.C. this year, but they're not a pushover team. They've got some young stars that are, keeping the energy up for that group. But really it is about getting to the bullpen. And let's see the offense get hot in the very offensively friendly Colorado Rocky ballpark Coors Field this weekend. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. I am always Jeff Candid, Cubs Rogowskis, joined by Pat Erickson. Make sure
perfect timing. I'm out of beer.
Exactly. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure that for every time we get a subscriber, we're going to be able to get Pat another beer, which is going to make him happy. But just stay tuned. We'll have more announcements on what Bricks Behind the Ivy is going to be this off season. Make sure you're shopping at Wrigleyville Sports and using that code IVY10. Get some coffee from our friends at Yagi Road Roasting Company, and tune in next week for another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. And go Cubs!
Go Cubbies!